Ingrid, if Mary shot that over to you, or
She
if there's
did
a
this
way.
morning. So I just hit record, and that PDF handout is on the Facebook group. So people
Perfect.
can access the handouts from there. And you have screen sharing privileges. If you want to go through them with us while you're talking about it, you are welcome to do that too.
That awesome. So, quick introduction about myself. My name is Matthew Fulton, as you guys already know by now, with Parkway Business Solutions. Parkway provides accounting and payroll services for small to medium-sized businesses, but really our true specialty is workflow design. I was very fortunate when we were first starting, or I was first starting with Parkway. My favorite procrastination was going on websites like Product Hunt and Beta List to see what new, latest, greatest thing was coming out, and ended up turning into a situation where connecting apps became this thing we call workflow design to help businesses get things done in a more efficient manner. As you mentioned, vendor sync along that same journey, that's where I came up with an application. Ironically, after we transitioned everybody from desktop to online, I came up with the QuickBooks desktop application. Of course, it works that way, right? So now we actually do support both. We do quite a bit more with online, but we support both sides of it. And vendor sync is basically it brings the power of the cloud through the bank feeds down to desktop, so you don't have to make that decision of do you want the bank feeds online or maybe the functionality of desktop. You can have both. And then the last thing that you kind of touch base on, which is probably one of the most important, is I'm the co-creator of a Facebook group called QB Community Live with my very good friend Linda Artisanti. And we do every week on Thursday, we do what we call weekly sessions, where it's basically live Q&A. We try to take questions from throughout the group, throughout the week, or from the special form we have, and try to demonstrate answers or talk through answers for people, because sometimes just reading a response isn't enough when we have the technical jargon involved as well. So we would love everybody to feel free to join. We already have quite a few members that are here today that are, you get the point, they're already members. But feel free to ask me questions, of course, and we'd love to help out. The primary topic today it's focused around marketing, and it's the idea of what are, for me, one of the best ways a business can try to capture new clientele for the least amount of money to be spent is Google My Business. And so I always try to recommend that if you haven't yet, you want to go and register or basically sign up for Google My Business and grab your business listing. And on that, I'm going to dive into my screen share here. We'll do a little bit of screen share, but then I'm also really going to dive right into the back end of Google My Business to show you, instead of just pictures of stuff, what we're really talking about. And again, please, the beauty of having the group that we do is if you've got questions, feel free to ask them. Sometimes it's really easy to forget what you had to learn, and I'm more than happy to dive in deeper and tell you a little bit more, share any knowledge I have on any part of the topic, of course. So again, discussion topics, we'll go through basic Google My Business, but we're also going to talk about, if you do have a website, some of the other things that are important for online consistency to make sure that as you're doing Google My Business, you're doing these things that you actually can be found easier by the Google bots, and you'll show up faster for people to find you. Some of that will be on page SEO that I'm going to breeze over most of, like, real briefly, so we can really focus more on the Google My Business part. So first and foremost, raise of hands. How many people, or actually not raise hands because not everything, please tell me, who here has a Google My Business already or who does not?
I do.
I might.
You might. Okay. What about you, Myra and Janice, either of you, and Wanda as well? I'm going to guess probably knows. So Google My Business. We all know when it comes to searches, basically, I mean, there's 3.5 billion searches done almost every single day, and close to 87% of those searches are all done through Google, which means if that many searches are being done that way, we want to feed the beast as much as we can. So the suggestion is you want to basically go and you want to make sure that your business is listed, grab it. There's a little bit of a process and a time that's involved where they have to send you a card to validate who you are. So then you can start to populate a profile and make sure it's easy for people to see you. The benefit of this is it will automatically do tracking of any visitors or anybody that goes to that Google My Business or does the searches. It will start to track all that for you, so you can start to see the benefits of adding in posts, so forth, which I'll show you shortly. So when we talk about Google My Business, we're talking about a search, and we're talking about what shows up on the side here. If I come back here, I'm going to pull up an incognito window and show you the most recent version of what I have now. If we basically come in and do a search, we'll go Google. Of course, I could have just done it at the top. We'll just type in Parkway Business Solutions, right? And when I do a search like this, you'll see on the side all this extra information. Now, obviously, if I pull up my name, you're going to get more detail. But if I did the same kind of concept and I just did Camarillo, spell right, bookkeeper, this is where you'll start to actually pull up. And if you had the maps or other information that show up here, you should have had the top 5 there. Anytime you're pulling up and the information that pulls up inside here, when you click on any of these maps, this again is where that information starts to pull up. So if somebody's going through and searching through and just kind of clicking one by one, the information that populates, if you see one that has extra details, you're probably more likely to go and click onto that one in comparison to something that's very basic and bland. So with Google My Business, you have the ability to dive in and you can actually establish all of this information, set up your pictures. Of course, you get your different Google reviews. You can actually do some pretty cool things such as question and answer options onto here. And I'll dive into that shortly. Your reviews will pull up, you add extra details. And then one of the best parts about it is adding on these posts as well. So having posts, having them all show up just shows that you're active in business. And again, if you're looking at 3 different companies, they're all being pulled up at the same time, which one would you go to first? Now, I think I normally would do bookkeeping services, Camarillo. And I actually meant to do that from, let's go back to our, sorry here. We're going to go back to normal Google and do this keyword search because I'm trying to get the map to pull up basically. It's not doing it for me. You know, normally you get a map, you get the top 3 is what I'm trying to get to pop up. It must be because I'm in a incognito. That is one of the areas that I'm really trying to talk about, because when that map shows, again, you're more likely to start clicking on the details to really see which business it is that you'd want to run with or work with. If I switch back here, where's my other one? We'll go to a new window here. Outside of incognito, of course. There we go. So now out of incognito, you've got these different businesses that are listed. Same situation again. How do we get set up to this type of stuff? How do we get that to pull up to the top organically so we're not a paid advertisement, but just showing up on searches, right? So here I just did bookkeeping services in my city, and we're at the top of the 3-pack, as they would call that. Are you guys familiar with this portion? Yes, Ingrid.
Yeah, and I have a question. So it didn't show up in the incognito window when you did it that way. And I'm wondering how much of that is Google's kind of big brotherness of it's putting you at the top for you because it knows that it's you. And how much of it is actually, you know, if I did that same search on my side, would it show up with you at the top? And
It's a great question. It's a great question, fair question, because it used to be even in incognito, it would still pull up the top 3 like that. Mm-hmm. So I actually don't know. So I would actually say, please, if you can on your browser, you can take a peek and we can actually kind of pull that back up in just a little bit and take a look. Of course, here we're seeing that's saved or starred. So it's definitely a possibility there. I actually, along that same line, anytime I travel anywhere, one of the things I always do whenever I'm at a random place is I will search my business from a distance, because I want to see what's pulling up. I'll do certain keyword searches because we want to actually have more reach than more than just local itself right away.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So I put in Camarillo bookkeeping and you're not in the top 3.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
that's good to know. So I need to revisit that.
Yeah.
Fran's doing something right, but she's got no reviews, so it's kind of surprising. So Fran's bookkeeping service she's second after DF Solutions, but it looks like she doesn't have, like, her website's not even on there. So why would she be in the top 2?
And that's interesting because she's not on mine. So we're all getting different results.
Yeah. So when I click on the more locations, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You are 8. Number 8 is when you show up.
Okay. So
11 for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you do, what were the, it seems funny, but bookkeeping services Camarillo versus bookkeeper near me, bookkeeper Camarillo. These are all what they call like long tail keywords or search terms.
Wow.
And the way that you use that information or the way you put that onto your website would actually make a difference. So part of it for us, we used to be located in Ventura. And part of my journey with search engine optimization has been to actually transition us over to Camarillo as another keyword. So we will pull up faster. So that could play a part of it as well, but the way different search terms you use, of course, will change all the way around it. So it's good information to know. Now the key though, really with the Google My Business, part of it as well will be as you're going through, there are different ways that we can take advantage of the setup of Google My Business to keyword stuff or fill in additional information about your company. And on the back end, this is what it looks like. So when you establish it, you go sign up for Google My Business. If you've got a basic Gmail account, you can use that email address. It's very simple that way. You'll come in, you're going to give them basic information about the company itself. You know, the name of it, your hours, your address, of course. It's going to ask you, and this is actually a pretty important one, it's going to ask you for your primary category and then secondary categories. This is different whether you put accountant or bookkeeping service, because they have predefined ones that you would use, will impact the way you show up on searches. I stress that because at the beginning, the word bookkeeping services is searched more than accountant, or bookkeeping is searched more than accountant. Because of that, we chose to use bookkeeping as our primary category because it generally has helped us show up at the top faster than using accountant. So you want to check in your area what your competition would be, which one works best, and just evaluate it after about the first 3 months or so and see if it's grabbing differently for you. If you
finish your thought and then I have a question.
If you, in the additional categories, if you put the other ones below, again, they'll still use these terms, but you do want to figure out what's going to be your primary, because some of the stuff we're going to talk about is going to be how we can use the questions being asked and the reviews that people leave to use those keywords over and over again, organically, sound good with language, but feed the beast. Let Google know what you're talking about, like make sure they understand all the time that is the best keyword for your business. You were going to say, Vanessa.
Address. Operating a business from your home.
Correct.
Google Listings is going to want an address. Is there a disadvantage to not including it? Is there a way that you can just do city and state? Is that better or worse?
Great question. Very, very good question. Important question. So it used to be that they only wanted brick and mortar. So if you weren't going to put an address in, they didn't put it as high as other businesses, but that has changed over the last 2 years to where they're now doing more of like a service area. The difficulty is if you do a service area like that just populated on its own, how do you choose a service area if we're cloud accountants, right? How do you choose a certain area? My response to that generally is when you're getting started, think of this as local search engine optimization. So for me, I'm in Ventura County. I would do Ventura County. You can add additional as well. So I could do the different cities if I wanted to, but I mean, I could all day putting all these in.
Especially in Southern California, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a great question. It is something that I would at least do a service area if you don't have a brick and mortar address to put on. One thing that's really important to watch out for is they do not like PO boxes and they do not like UPS stores. We did use a UPS store at first. This seemed to work for me, so I'm going to share it with you, but I strongly advise you just kind of take a look into it yourself to make sure they haven't gotten rid of it. When I used a UPS store, instead of using the street address 2 for my suite number, I actually put everything all in this single line. So it was the 4744 Telephone Road, STE 3-114, all in one full line, which made it seem like a unique address. And it never, knock on wood, never caused me any issues. So that is, if you are using UPS store, that's kind of a little trick that you can use to try to trick the bots on that side.
So I have a question as far as, so service area, Matthew, do your clients, are they mostly in your local region? Is that one of the things that you're going for with your marketing?
So, most of our clients are still local, and that's because the nature of the beast, it's a lot easier to show up on local searches than it is on a national level.
Yeah.
But no, we are actively expanding and branching out. It's been our goal to be able to grab clients across the United States, but that's where more of the true search engine optimization, where you're creating articles and blog posts, different things that will grab people when they start to search, best app for landscapers, or, different things of that nature. That's what generally will bring in people from around the United States, or of course, referrals from other great accountants like you all.
Yeah, well, because I can see where this would be really useful for a tax preparer like Myra.
Absolutely.
Where, if you don't want to have to know the tax legality for every darn state, focusing on the state that you're in as a primary thing is, that's definitely advantageous. But for myself, I have clients all over the country, and I focus on a very niche specialty, and my best clients come from the conferences that I speak at and attend.
Yeah. And
so I've actually found that most of the people who find me on Google by just looking for bookkeepers in Ashland, Oregon, which bookkeeping is not a service that I provide any longer. And, I end up just referring them on, and I end up being more of a referral service. So, I was actually thinking about shutting down my Google My Business so that people can't find me that way, because it just takes up time referring people on.
I think that the way I would circumvent against that would be make sure to add in services inside of your Google My Business that are more, that you kind of clearly define what it is that you're working, that you do, but also to take the time to answer questions. Now, questions are a little bit harder to get to from the back end, so I'm going to come back over here real quick. You have the ability that you can have people ask questions, or you ask questions inside of here. And the way you answer these back can be very powerful. So what I mean by this is you can kind of feed the beast again here. They're going to watch IP addresses. So this isn't you don't go in yourself and just put all these questions in. If they come all from one place and you try to answer them, Google is smart enough to see that. But if you have different people asking questions from all over the place, you can put in, my bookkeeping has fallen behind. Can your company help me get caught up? Yes, that was me at a friend's house putting it in, because I was trying to put in the keywords like bookkeeping and then answer in questions as well. So by doing some Q&A like this, I would really focus on your niche type questions to draw attention to it, to help you out. And then I would also take time when you set up your company information inside of here, you can actually set up a special calendar link where people can try to schedule something up. You can put more of a description in. You can choose where they land to. I would probably do my Google My Business and direct it to a specific landing page that right up front, again, highlights specializing in the such and such an industry. So the goal there is you can try to eliminate some of those phone calls of people once they land on and look at it. If people are calling, because they can call just straight from the phone number, right? You can track how many phone calls that you receive through the insights section. And that would be something to kind of keep an eye on, because if the majority of the calls are coming straight from the click to call, then you're right. It's going to be tough to, to manage that, because the people aren't really doing their homework. They're just calling, like typing in and just calling the very first person.
That's kind of been my experience, is that
Okay.
we're in a small area, and so it's easy to be at the top.
Okay.
And
That's a
they're
good
just
problem to have.
looking to call the first thing that pops up, and then I end up having to direct them to all of the other accounting professionals who don't have their marketing online.
So it's a great point. The last thing that you could be doing is making sure that however else your page is showing up, hopefully towards the top, if you have your pages titled from your website something that's showing industry specific, or the little snippets it captures, hopefully that'll grab their eyes as to not the right fit. But
Yeah.
posts would be a great use for you to really keep pushing the fact what industry you're in. But pardon the language, you can't fix stupid, right? So there's a little bit of a hard part with that. Now, one of the benefits of doing all of this stuff and typing the information in is, if you do not have a website at all, when you put this information in, it's going to generate a very basic website for you with your information that people can then land on and learn more about your business. As you create different posts, and I'm going to show you the post in a moment, that last for about a week at a time, these posts get populated on here automatic. So again, you want these posts to be keyword stuffing things about your business, whether it's bookkeeping, payroll, tax, industry you specialize in, because you're feeding directly into Google information that's important about your company. It will also give you the ability that your testimonials will, of course, show up. You can have your services show up, that the services you offer show up inside of here as well. Gallery of different photos. So all of this has organically been created just by doing these little posts here and there. And it took me, for the rest of the stuff, probably an hour and a half to just fill in my hours, the address, and the this, the that, using their basic template to it. What that site looks like is this. So now here, if they click call now, for you, Ingrid, of course, you would lay this together with exactly the industry that you're working on, right? And hopefully they would see all that information. But so we actually have our own full website, plus we have this. Most people don't ever land on this site. It's kind of hidden back behind the scenes, but it still exists, that I'm feeding the information to try to make sure that the company's pulling up in the search terms for the keywords that we want. Does that make sense to everybody? Kind of how to use this part?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. One of the important things for Google loves pictures, loves pictures. The more pictures you put up and keep putting them up all the time, even if it's I do little video snippets, I'll put those in here. If it's pictures of, this is just a cover picture I did for something else, they just love it. And they love to show that information as much as possible. It also is great because when people are doing searches, I don't know if you've ever searched and pulled up the photos, your photos will pull up everywhere. There's if you pull up Intuit or QuickBooks or QBox or all these things, I almost always find, even incognito, one of my pictures somewhere at some point. So it's all those little branches that keep going out there. So you want, again, the results to be there. The more content that you have that can link back, the higher domain ranking you get. It's kind of a score that they put together for you to raise your presence organically to show up more for people. So pictures, it's huge, super, super important. Messaging is also possible through Google My Business, to where for a, there it is, Android or iPhone, they have an app that become really powerful. And when you start to focus on this and use it quite often, you can see through here, okay, direct searches means somebody who's basically searching my exact name or the address in comparison to the product or category, how often I'm showing up and what's the percentage. And you want to be looking at that detail because it's going to help you better understand how you're doing. So if I go out to like a quarter, we can see some of the branded information showing up here as well. You can do pay-per-click connection to this as also. So if you're just getting started, you could pay for like advertisement. I'm not as big a fan of that because the moment you stop paying for the pay-per-click, it's like renting a website that goes away. But there are times it can be very helpful. Then this will start to show the different query words. This, I don't think this is extremely accurate, but it gives you a basic idea. If you use other metrics like Google Analytics, you can get better information. But it'll tell you that, okay, so if people are searching FreshBooks in my area or accountants near me, these are things that are why we are populating, basically. Ingrid, you're on mute.
Sorry, my internet died, so now I'm on my mobile hotspot. Hopefully the recording didn't get interrupted and continued while I was gone. Do you support FreshBooks?
Not really. I became certified quite some time ago. Again, if you're just getting started, I'm a firm believer you should become certified in everything you can. Starting with the most important one, whatever that is to you. I'm going to say for us, it would be QuickBooks Online, but I would still get certified in Xero, FreshBooks, Wave, because you need to know what the other platforms are doing, as well as it helps you usually create a profile that can link back to your site or link back to you, because you want to have more search things pull up when you search your name. I personally feel as soon as you want to get to a point where you have at least 2 pages full of searches, you know a business is established if they've got 2 pages of searches pulling up. But I will say I'm going to probably look into FreshBooks again now. With Twyla being there, I think it's going to be some good stuff. So then you kind of see here different listings and stuff that's showing up. I wanted to show you for the pictures that show up here, photo views. This is why I always stress the fact for photos. So for us, 631. Other businesses like us, they normally have about 324. We have double that number because we are always trying to add pictures in, and then what they consider the quality of photos. So ours versus businesses like you. So they really love that content. They love seeing video. If you can actually do, you can do a virtual 360 tour now inside of your company as well. Google they're loving that right now. So if you know anybody has one of the little 360 cameras, be a great way to do it. Your pictures for the inside, if you're working from home, it can literally be just as simple as your work environment, just meeting with a client. It could be anything, just something that's fun, that shows some character about your business, right? You want it to feel real is the whole point. Picture of yourself, preferably a newer one. If it's an old picture, get a newer one, put it up there as well. Other thing I really, really recommend everybody always do is your company logos. Get your company logo up in here, have a transparent version of it, and you should have like a black and white version and then a contrasting version. And the reason I stress that is you never know who needs to get a copy of your logo to put you on a flyer or this or that. If they're trying to search you, you want to make it as easy as possible so it's nice and clean. It's so hard sometimes to find people's logos, so definitely do that. Now, the posts, this is the fun part of it. once you've set up your whole Google My Business and it's basically creating the website, the ongoing maintenance that's required is very nominal. You can come in and you can do a weekly post. You could do it more often, but these will each last 7 days. And when you do a post, like I put this one up today, it doesn't have to be some huge long thing. You could write something more out, but you always have the ability to do like a learn more, a sign up, a register, something of that nature. And when you put it into here first, you can then come and do a share post to double down on this and then share it out to Facebook or out to Twitter. So it's grabbing more links, kind of pulling it all together. You're feeding the beast again with more detail. And when you do this, it's a great way to use social media to, again, market your business more, but still drive them back through that Google My Business pathway, especially if you don't have a website. Let's go back here. Any questions, any of this stuff so far that we're kind of going through? When you're creating a post, it can be, of course, let's do add an update. You can do photos or videos. You don't even have to have that if you don't want to. Write in your basic information, and then these are the different options for a button. When you do have a website, this is great to be able to link it back to your site to where you can try to drive people over and have them, engage into your website and learn more about your company, of course. So again, the reason for all this is, if we're doing all this information, we're literally stuffing all this information directly in to the web browser, the company that's got, what I say, it was 87% of all the searches happening through it. Super, super important. Now, some of the other stuff we talked about we were going to talk about through here. When you're setting up your actual website, there you have what's known as your name, address, phone, and website. You want that to match across every listing everywhere. Okay. What I mean by that is, I talked earlier about, actually for Parkway, I'll show it this way. With Parkway, if I use Parkway Business Solutions instead of Parkway.Business Inc. being the actual legal name, Google may think it's two different businesses. If I do the address as a 2-line item, so 80 Wood Road, line 2, Suite 302, that is fundamentally different than all of it being on just street address line 1. The phone number that you put, of course, you want everything to be consistent all the way through all of this. So it doesn't have to think it's two different companies. It starts to recognize them all together because, again, you're trying to build up that kind of brand domain awareness. I have an actual little link on my website where you can run through. It's through a company called SignUp. And what this does, we'll pull it up here, gives you the ability, you can run a query on your business and figure out what does everything appear as. So if I do, actually, let's do, somebody else want to do their site? No? Okay, so.
Yeah, you can do mine, Matthew, if you want.
Okay, so it's.
Yep, bookkeeping solutions.
Now, as I go to do these two parts, just full disclaimer, this does go through a company called SignUp. This is set up to where it's supposed to go into my own portal, but there is always a possibility that as you scan this and look for it, I can't guarantee that they won't try to turn around and say, hey, we found errors. So I just want to make sure, full disclosure, to be fair, that you know that part. Is it okay if we still run this part?
I think so.
It's never been an issue, just trying to be transparent.
Okay,
so,
sure. Let's take it down really quick if it does something crazy. I don't know.
So what is the business phone number you have listed on everything?
541-414-4271.
And then the business email that you use.
Joanne, Joanne, @beckbookkeeping.com.
So Matthew, as you're typing that in, I see the URL that you're at is scan.parkway.business. Is that where we would search for our business on SignUp?
So you can go through this way, or I can actually show you where it directly is with sign up. I actually set this up under a subdomain as a way for a resource for people to use, because my goal was to actually help put a barrier between a company and others, so they could hopefully get the same information without getting phone calls from other people. So the first one actually was the capture of basic information of the person. So now I'll redo it again real quick here. I set this up about 2.5 years ago.
Solutions.
Thank you. See, that would have already been a problem. Solutions, right?
Yep.
Okay. Country, we'll go United States. It's going to be Oregon. And what city?
Central Point.
Center Point.
Central. 2 words.
Thank you. Like that?
Yep.
And the what's the address you have listed for your business?
I don't list the address for my business.
And then let's try without that on there. And then zip code.
97502.
And I'm sorry, it was 514. 541.
414. 4271.
So let's go through.
It wants try. So I have a PO box. I Google my business won't let me put it in, but let's try it. It's PO box 3816 3816. Yep.
And okay, so it goes scanning through for 35 of the most common to see if what would be listed or not. So on Facebook, do you have yours listed?
I have a business page.
And is the details on Facebook the same there?
Should be, but I don't know. That's a good question.
So what it is basically, I've been using this service now for a couple years.
Yeah.
Every one of these different sites, and there are so many more of them out there that you can list your company, right? If you were to go through and manually try to add your business to each one, it will take you an hour, probably hour to an hour and a half to do each one of these. And they basically will go through, you give them the information that you need for it. So I would basically set up, I always set up a template document that I have the pictures that I want to put onto every single one of these sites if I'm going to do it manual. All my business information. I have my description of what the business is, you know, the little basic 250 character one, another one's like 500 character. And you can feed it into this company, you pay them, and they will go and set up the exact same listing on every single place that's out there. And the reason that becomes important, so if we come back here, we do the Parkway Business Solutions, right?
Yeah.
When I come through, these are going to populate all over the place. So Yelp is one. Here's my Manta. So our, like, as we can see, this has our Ventura address. This is part of the struggle I'm having, is whether or not to do a single location, 2 location, or transition everything over to just the new Camarillo location. All of this stuff, it starts filling in. As you can see, it starts, it makes you have a larger presence out there, right? If you're found, you know, if you're seen all over the place. So all the language that is inside of this was stuff that I provided and filled in to the company. Let's see if there's a better one here. MapQuest is a pretty common one. Let's see here. And these names change all the time, or the different sites they use.
Okay.
Like Z-Maps I've never seen before. So again, this is another one. The more places everything is listed, the more established you're going to appear, the more backlinks you have, It all comes back to your online presence and just making sure that you have the strongest presence available.
Would you, Matthew, would you recommend, I mean, the same process, if we aren't looking for a ton of people to come knocking on the door, but we're more interested in looking established and, you know, well presented online? I'm amazed at how many people don't even have a website and they have just a Facebook page. And if you're trying to step it up without like a bunch of tire kickers landing on your door, would you recommend the same process?
So great question. I would, because of the pricing, when I used to sign up, it cost me about $250 for the whole year to go through and again register for up to those 35 different sites. And I can get you guys a link for it to make sure pricing, all that stuff is the same. Not affiliate link, but just get you closer to the company. Truly, I started doing this first one at a time myself, and the amount of time it took to do it, it just makes better sense to spend the $250 and then just pick and choose certain ones you want to do, like yellow pages, like white pages, Yelp, Google, your Google My Business, Facebook, all those kind of things. So I would cherry pick the sites that I actually registered with, and I'd be very particular with the information that I put into those. It's you're selling yourself basically. So choose the pictures that you want. Take the time to do better pictures, because if you want well-established businesses, you need to present a well-established face for them to, when they're looking for you. From that side of it, it doesn't hurt to have the leads come from the other ones. I honestly don't, like, when I do my searches through like Google Analytics, everything else, I barely ever see anything come from Hot Frog, whatever it is. They just don't usually come.
What's your number one source of leads? Where do most of your
so it's funny how it changes over time. It's probably the content that's been created for the last 4 years. Again, as we're trying to branch out more organically throughout the United States, it's the different search terms that people do. Like one of my favorite ones, QuickBooks Online Bank Feeds, is just, I'm a bank feed dork. So I love finding a search for QuickBooks Online Bank Feeds and having Parkway show up as the Google answer. I've had that maybe twice. But that's like the coolest thing ever, because that means Google's like putting you on top of everything. The videos have been huge, but it took me a couple of years to start to get some traction with the channel. Primarily PPP really helped kickstart that one heavily, but now we're getting new leads from the video stuff that we do. We get a lot of leads, fortunately, from amazing accountants in the community. If I had known what social media really could do for a business sooner, and if I had known how giving this accounting industry is, I would have jumped in a long time ago. Because if you give and share knowledge first, it comes back tenfold. It just absolutely does. So that's become our biggest source of leads. Before that, it's been searches online. So if you've got a business card, right? You're out in a meeting, you're doing whatever. Even if you hand off a business card, first thing that's going to happen is they're going to go, and whether they have the card or not, if they can remember your name, they're going to go search you.
Yes.
Right? So your website, whether it's a Google My Business website or something else, that presence of what shows up right away, that is that big billboard on the side of the freeway that is always working for you to always drive traffic towards you. And then you just have to have other ways to make sure that Google recognizes that you're still relevant, that that they should still be sending stuff to you. In the PDF, if you download, I'll share towards the end of it, there's actually sites that you can use that help you track your domain, how efficient it is, your SEO score, if you're popular or not. And they're all towards the back of this. Like here's the organic search stuff I was talking about. If your social media, having your social media link to your website is a really important thing. When you pull up, like I have just a very basic Facebook widget, but it shows this page has been liked 137 times. Well, when Google sees that or Bing sees that, that means they feel you're, when you get those thumbs up, it's like people referring you, right? They're saying, hey, I trust these folks. So it really helps bring that information in front of everybody else. The one I really like to show people when they're just getting started is this one called Nibbler. All these links are supposed to, oh, I didn't do that right a long time ago. Gotta fix that. They're supposed to actually take you straight to the sites. So what Nibbler does is if you've got a site already, you come in and you can do a search of it. And I'll do HTTPS. The S versus not is important. Do a search and it will pull up, it'll evaluate just 5 random pages from your website, tell you if the images are set up correctly, if they're sized right, if you've got good titles to it, the popularity of the page, how recently the information was updated, and kind of give you a basic scorecard. I run this on my own site probably twice a year just to kind of keep an eye and see what's going on, something that I can do real quick. It's free, doesn't cost anything. There's no sales coming afterwards. It's just a great resource to have. I will actually use this, ironically, more when we have new clients come on. I'll run a report like this and give it to them because you just look like a true advisor when you can help them recognize like certain aspects of their website that they can improve upon. So it did a basic search. You can see scores on the side. Overall was a 9.2, and it's going to tell me my printability, which used to have it, but I'll have to fix that. Popularity, 5.4. I have not been doing a good enough job. It actually shows me that the slight decrease in popularity. That's bad. The ranking of number of sites in the world, which, I mean, I'd love to see somebody who's got something really high. That'd be awesome. I'd be proud of them. Images. There's so much more I can go into on the importance of like if you're doing a website yourself, there are certain ways to upload an image to ensure that you are not oversizing the image and making your page have to load something bigger than it really needs. So there's compressors you can use, and there's tips and tricks on how you want to upload it to have the like keywords that you want. So again, you're kind of keyword stuffing the website when you do that to make sure it shows up faster. Twitter. So I never used to do much with Twitter. This is one of the reasons I started to jump into it. I think I need to do an extra tweet. That's pretty bad. 666 tweets for followers. Internal links. So having the ability, if you create blogs, linking back and forth between different articles, because again, the way Google works is they have these little spiders, as they call them, that just go crawling around from one thing to another. And as soon as there's a link from this to that, it jumps and it follows that link and it goes and sees what's on the page. So like it doesn't see images, it sees the text, what they call the alt text behind, to understand what things are. And all of that helps feed the beast again with what your keywords are to make sure, are you relevant or not for the topic people are searching. The amount of content that you have on a page matters. You don't have too much, but you want to make sure you have at least enough words. The headings, so you can kind of get an idea of accountant, bookkeeping, books, are certain things that are populating as keywords that would be relevant for us. The responsiveness of a site. This is a huge one that when you design a site, when you look at it from mobile, of course, right? Does it look right on mobile or not? Does it load fast enough on mobile is really important. Server, if it's working correct. Analytics, it just means like I've got other little widgets on the back end that can track much deeper detail on this. So I can see how many people are on my website right now versus how many people have been on it over the last 2 years and the up and down from it all. The structure of your page and the titles you use, all that stuff becomes important. And then this is really kind of the cool part is the incoming links, or what they call backlinks. So one of the benefits of writing articles, like Janice, you were talking about her earlier, that you were an editor, writer, so forth. When we do articles for like Intuit's Firm of the Future, that is really helpful to us because they'll put my name on there and link back to my website as the author. And Intuit has what they call a domain ranking, where it's a really high ranking, and it lifts up the value as a trusted resource of our website by having more of those type of links. It's where actually people in this group also, if there was an article, let's say everybody here wrote an article that we could backlink to each other, by doing that, having more of that stuff that's all related to the same industry basically is another saying, hey, this website is vouching for this website that it's good people and it's good information. And that helps lift all of the sites up all together. So this is definitely one of those areas where it's easy to forget what I had to learn. So I know that was kind of a fire hydrant of details. As I dove into more of like the SEO, anybody have questions on any of that part of that stuff? So then I want to ask everybody else, how are you guys finding your new leads? What's everybody else doing currently to try to bring in new clients?
I'm just kind of riding the referral wave right now and loving that because it's very stress-free.
Yeah.
So, but that, we all know for whatever reason, clients, change their direction. So I don't ever want to just say, yeah, I don't ever have to market, but I find marketing super stressful. I don't know about anybody else, but it's very stressful to me. I feel like I'm trying to keep up with something I can never keep up with. And I just feel like I'm underwater all the time. So I just don't do anything. I like this because it feels like something really achievable.
It really is why, like, I stress with everybody, because in our group, we get a lot of people that are always asking, how do I find my first clients? How do we find our first people?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest reason why I stress on the Google My Business, because it's the best beginning landing point that only costs you the time you put into it at first. And you need that no matter what. As you expand more, you have to have that Google My Business set up that you can then link them back to your actual website when you do it, without spending any money at the beginning.
Yep. Great info for sure.
Beautiful. There's always plenty more I could talk about with this stuff. I mean, I think I'd bore everybody, but I want to, before I do that, Ingrid, do you have any other questions or suggestions onto it, or?
Not so much a question or suggestion, but just thinking about what you were talking about, the backlinks, as I'm working on my own rebrand, going from polymath.com to priestessofprofits.com, just thinking about the number of backlinks that I have in content that I wrote years ago, going to polymath.com, and particularly resources for accounting professionals. And trying to think about, okay, who do I need to contact at Intuit to update those links?
That is a great, so here's the other part though, because you're right. What about other places also? So I've got a tool on my computer where we could pull up your domain and basically try to get a link or a list of all the different backlinks. That what you would want to do is, you've got one of the most difficult things to handle is you need to actually redirect all the links from the polymath to the new domain. And then you need to inform every single thing that is backlinking to your articles or this or that, because they don't want broken content either. You want to let them know, hey, want to let you know we're doing a rebranding. This is going to be the new URL that you're going to want to go to this article and change the link so it continues to work.
Yep.
And it can be hard to do that.
What is the site that you use to search for those backlinks?
So the best one that I've found is a company called I don't ever know how to pronounce it the right way. It's Ahrefs or Ahrefs.
Could you stick it in the chat?
Yes. They are a bit more, they're the best ones because they are the Kleenex of this, but they're more expensive. What you can do, and I especially recommend for all of this stuff when it comes to SEO and all these kind of content, this is where AppSumo is amazing. Who here is familiar with AppSumo?
Heard of it.
Okay. Don't blame me when you get addicted or you spend too much, but you can tell me how much you love it afterwards. So AppSumo is a website that's basically all lifetime deals. So you come into here and you can see what different people are creating or coming up with. And let's see what they've got at the moment. They'll have certain, like I always say, one of the best ways to learn about search engine optimization is you find one of these type of programs. And I usually try to put like a note out into the Facebook land when I see one that I feel is good that people could buy. Spend $69 one time, buy something like that where you can actually kind of check yourself how your SEO is doing, because it'll teach you what you're looking for and the different bits of it. You pay one time. That's it. When you buy it, you have 60 days to check it out, any of these apps out, see if you like if you like it or not. If you're not happy with it, they will refund the money 100%, no questions asked. So I've picked up some great apps from here, and I've picked up some stinker apps from here. I've returned quite a few of them as well. They also have like acceleration things. I'm trying to see if there's something that'd be a great translation. Video translation stuff is really popular nowadays, right? Doing the transcriptions and everything else. Linda loves Happy Scribe. I just picked this one up and it seems pretty cool so far. So you can just upload like this video and it would do a transcription of the entire thing for you, so you don't have to. For a one-time price of $69, that's a great deal instead of Otter AI, which is $10 a month, or other ones which are even more money.
Yeah, rev.com, isn't it like $1 a minute or something like that for content transcribed?
Yeah, now there is a big difference between something like that. Like rev.com has humans going through and actually updating or adjusting or modifying, right, to make sure that it's exactly accurate. Where like an Otter AI is artificial intelligence the entire time, and you have to go back in and manually adjust it yourself if there's.
Well, you have to go through it and proofread the people at rev.com also, because they're not perfect either.
Okay.
Especially when you're using jargon and words they don't understand.
Exactly. On my YouTube channel, we have a video where we talked about actually like I like Otter AI. They have a free version that you can do where you still get 600 minutes a month. For $10 a month, you get 6,000. And I can link it straight to my Zoom meetings. So anytime I have a Zoom meeting, it will automatically go and transcribe it for me. And that's how you use that, you clean it up, and you stick it on as the captions for a video, because there's more engagement when you have the actual captions available. Most people, when they're watching stuff on social media, they're a place they're not supposed to be. It used to be, well, especially if they were at the office before, right? So they would have the sound off and they could do that instead. Yeah, you can find all kinds of cool things from all these. I didn't see anything that was that great on here at the moment, but it's worth checking out. You'll love it. Just keep an eye.
Put that backlink link in the chat.
Yes. I was hoping to see there was one here that was going to be cheaper for you, but I'll put it in the chat in just 1 second as well. So this one, so for you, actually, you could do a 7-day trial, which would be great, because then you could grab the information you need. And the link is coming to the chat now. It's also in the PDF at the back.
Awesome. Thank you.
So these tools, all the stuff I was just talking about, again, these have the different links of stuff you can use, as well as a full table of all the different like resources I use all the time.
Wow.
AppSumo. we went through this whole presentation like with more detail and such with Seth David a couple of years ago. And we kind of dive in a little bit deeper to the different tools and such. So if anybody wants to know more about any of that, you can take a look at the video, but more importantly, you can also go into QB Community Live. You could go to our forum and just ask some question, like post a question in the forum, and we will try to answer it live for everybody also. I want to do a whole section on marketing for the group because the information we all need is so much more than just QuickBooks based, I think, to be successful. It's workers' comp, it's merchant processing, it's websites, it's phone skills, training your people how to answer a phone and how to answer questions for clients to get them, close a deal. It's all these different aspects. So we're hoping more people will start to ask some of those other questions, and we can even bring in other experts in different areas to help answer those.
Fantastic. And I put the link for that Facebook group, QB Community Live, in the chat earlier. I think Charday might have joined us since then. Hey, Charday. Looks like you're muted. So if you have any questions, I don't know if you're hearing us or not.
And I'll put it back in. I'm also going to put a link to my YouTube channel because I have videos galore on all of this stuff. Anytime I learn something new, I always like to make a video and kind of share it with the world.
Yeah. Well, and do you want to put a link for Vendor Sync also?
Of course. That one didn't work. Let me try that again. How many people are working with QuickBooks Desktop still?
I know Janice does. I think most of the rest of us are mostly online.
So again, the application is very specifically for QuickBooks Desktop, Enterprise, anything of that nature. And what it does is, thank you. You know how you can create the bank, they're called renaming rules in Desktop, right? But they're pretty inefficient and they tend to slow everything down a lot in Desktop.
Mm-hmm.
What we've done instead is we basically made it to where it pulls the entire vendor list and the entire chart of accounts from a desktop file up to the cloud. And you can make a relationship between the vendor and the chart of account. So when you run your transactions, you pull that QBO file over through VendorSync first, and it will actually auto-suggest names based on the memos and special rules to populate into the actual file. So when you import it into QuickBooks, it actually auto-categorizes and auto-suggests all the expenses, basically, saving a whole bunch of time for like rebuilds. It's pretty neat.
Cool.
And that one is
fantastic. Yay. Well, we've got about 8 minutes before the top of the hour, and I want to make sure we end on time today, if for no other reason than I have another meeting at 2 o'clock. So any other questions for Matthew? Questions, ideas, requests for topics for next month? Anything about PPP or EIDLs? Well, we've got Matthew's juicy brain on the call here today.
Oh, that's like a whole episode of itself, right?
Yeah, I was hoping we might get a few of our like, we've got a huge bunch of CPAs and other tax preparers and things like that on our Facebook group who are like lurkers and never actually come to a meeting. I was hoping that seeding the thing with PPP and EIDL might hook them.
I'm always happy to put together a quick meeting for anybody if they've got questions on PPP.
I'll just ask a really quick basic question. At this point in time, there still is no forgiveness, just keeps getting pushed back, right? Because I know in general, everybody's being told, don't fill out the form, the rules are not established yet. So everybody's just sitting and waiting. Is that correct?
Which is horrible. I was talking to Jacob, and before he went to go meet with his congressman, and we were kind of sharing ideas back and forth. And the number one thing I personally feel needs to happen right now is we need a date, end date that every single financial institution, lender, whoever it is, must have their portal up by, because the loan forgiveness, especially anybody that's on the 24-week, so after June 5th, for sure, if they elected the 24-week, one of the most important dates is the date you submit your loan forgiveness application. So where I'm concerned, to be like gloomy Gus, is if you had all these people that had 8-week periods, right? They did everything they were supposed to. They handled it all within that period of time. But they have since then, with all this resurgence of COVID, they've had to lay people off. Do they now fall underneath this safe harbor exemption, or will they have the possibility that if they have a reduction, like, will this cause a reduction? Will they actually end up having it turn into a loan now because we don't even have the ability to submit a loan forgiveness app yet?
Yeah. Well, and not just that, but I was reading another article. Zeb Smith, a CPA colleague that also specializes in tourism activities, was posting something about even if somebody, if their PPP is forgiven entirely, if they got, say, $200,000, and yeah, it's forgiven, but the government is still trying to decide whether or not that money is tax deductible. If all of a sudden that is taxable, and they have to count it as income, now they've got $200,000 on their bottom line, which puts them into a 24% tax bracket. They're going to owe almost $50K in taxes.
You nailed it.
And have no money to be able to pay it.
Yep. This whole, I'm a very, very positive person, but I've been screaming from the top of my lungs now for a while that I'm concerned this whole thing has been a trap. I feel like the federal government literally said, we're about to have a whole bunch of federal debt in the means of unemployment.
Yeah.
Oh, I got an idea. Why don't we create this program? We'll call it the Paycheck Protection Program. And we'll tell everybody, we'll give them loans that are forgivable, right? And we'll get them to put the responsibility of paying these people, keeping them off unemployment for these potentially forgivable loans. I'm very, very concerned on it. If I'm right, we're in trouble. If I'm wrong, that's great. So I hope I'm wrong on it, but there's just so many little nuances. Like the blanket forgiveness would be great, right? If it's 150,000 or below, why are they dragging their feet on that? If they're talking about PPP round 2, I pray that if they do a PPP V2, that they keep the calculation and the forgiveness of that independent of the first round. They're stupid enough to combine it together, and it's just going to take the calculations responsible for it and just muddy the water so much.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like when the whole thing started, changes were happening so fast. Like you almost adapted to that being the new norm, that when there was 3 or 4 days of silence, you got worried, and they always managed on a Friday to come up with some great change to toss you and just ruin your weekend. It's been so quiet for a while. I'm really scared what they're doing to us. So.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much I do not remember about economics class, but the one thing that I'll never forget is there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, right? That acronym that was the first thing when all this started. That just rang over and over in my head. I'm like, this could be really bad.
Yep.
I had a picture
like you, Matthew. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but man, the potential is there to be so bad.
I just want to protect all of our people, right? Like that's my biggest thing right now.
Because that's not the government's priority.
Yeah.
So on that note, we've got just a couple minutes left. And I think that we can probably start wrapping up. And I want to thank you, Matthew, so much for joining us today. And any last questions for Matthew before we wrap up and get going? Because I do have another call in just a couple minutes. So, okay.
I was going to show one picture if I can find it fast enough here, which I'm almost on, just to send us off on a chuckle if Facebook will go faster.
I would love that after all the PPP discussion and thing on an up note.
So you're talking about paying, pushing it forward, regardless of what your political beliefs are. There's one from both sides, right? But they're both are Popeye the Sailorman, like the "I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today." And it seems like that sums up our entire Knuckleheads.
With
Better than some
interest.
Spanish.
Yay.
Thank you for the opportunity, everybody. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you so much,
Matthew.
Matthew, and we'll see everybody next month.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.